Not doing coffee today. I woke up really early and I forgot to do the coffee thing, but yesterday I was at a market near my apartment and I was looking at their selection of beer, and there's a fucking brewery near my new place. So this is South Beach Brewing Company. I just Googled it and it's within it's like a 15-minute walk from here. Blood Orange Sunset IPA. And this is of interest because honestly, I don't really care that much for coffee. I just drink it every morning out of like Pavlovian habit. But I do love beer very much. But yeah, I do like beer very much. They have 100 and something beers on tap, and there was this exam to become a server, and like I couldn't memorize all the different categories of beers. But it'd be cool to like make a habit of just trying new beers from the area, and I really like IPA. And in prepping for that exam, which I knew I was gonna fail, so I didn't bother taking it a second time. But I did somewhat exhaustively study for it a second time, and I finally learned like some of the beer terminology. I love IPA, and apparently IPAs are hoppy, and the word hoppy I finally learned means like floral, kind of citrusy. And this says it's made with real Florida OJ. And it's very, very good. For the past 3 or 4 months, I have finally, at the age of 31, started reading Shakespeare, like, kind of seriously. In high school, I only had to read Hamlet and Romeo and Juliet. And if you are considering getting into into reading Shakespeare, let me just say, fucking go for it. I am still super intimidated by Shakespearean language. The only way that I'm getting through these plays and like understanding as much as I'm understanding is because I'm simultaneously listening to BBC radio performances. It is very accessible, but one of the things that was inhibiting me from like trying to climb that mountain is kind of based on something that I learned from Jane Smiley in a memoir of hers called 13 Ways of Looking at the Novel. The average adult reads about 30 pages an hour. The average American novel is about 300 pages. Therefore, it takes the average adult about 10 hours to read the average American novel, which is like, it sounds like a huge task if someone says to you, hey, do this for 10 hours. But it isn't consecutive hours, and ultimately that is like not even the duration of a season of Stranger Things. But because Shakespeare's plays are always presented, like they're always sold at a bookstore as a whole ass book, because it always looks like this, like actual novel length. For years I've been looking at this ever since I read that Jane Smiley book, like there's no fucking way I can fucking endure 10 hours of trying to plow through Shakespearean verse. And I forgot that these are not novels, these are plays. And if you've ever attended a play, they're usually not 10 hours long. And yeah, so I got all these, on Audible, I got all of these BBC radio performance collections. And they're all like between 2 and I think Hamlet is 3.5 hours, but it's like the longest. And so like I listen along and I read, and it's really helping me to get through it and to retain it and to realize shit is crazy accessible. I've always imagined Shakespeare as like a very lofty, sort of the height of English literature. So obviously you think, oh, yes, it's incredibly cerebral and very abstruse. And it can be very cerebral and very abstruse. But there's like a lot of sword fights. I don't know how many times in these, I think I've read 7 in the past like 4 months. And I don't know how many times he gives that stage direction, they fight. Like if Shakespeare was writing for the stage, or more likely for the screen, in the year 2020, like... he'd be doing shoot-em-ups. I'm convinced that if Shakespeare were alive and he was a filmmaker in 2020, every movie he made would have a car chase. You know what's surprisingly not that accessible, though, that I was also reading, is fucking Cormac McCarthy's new novel. It's called The Passenger. He's been tinkering with it for like 40 years, and I realized I did not like it the first time I read it. And then it's got, quite literally, a sibling novel called Stella Maris that comes out in December. And this is not a pan of the book. Like, I got them both at the same time. I read them in order. I was mystified by The Passenger, and then I read Stella Maris, and I just out and out did not like it. But then Stella Maris ends on a certain note. It's like super illuminating about shit that happened in The Passenger. So what it's supposed to make you do is you finish reading book 2 and you're like, holy shit, let me go back to book 1. And then you get back to book 1, and from the first page of book 1, now it's like a different book. And in that respect, because Cormac McCarthy is an Irish Catholic novelist who is very passionate about like tradition, what he is doing in The Passenger and Stella Maris together is he's trying to sort of resurrect and reinterpret James Joyce's last novel, which was Finnegan's Wake. It's also quite likely that this is Cormac McCarthy's last novel, because he's 89 years old. He's been working on this book for 40 years. James Joyce worked on Finnegan's Wake for 17 years. If you're not familiar with Finnegan's Wake, it's like a 500-600 page novel made up entirely of puns. One word is supposed to suggest two words because the main character, he's actually dreaming all of these things. It opens mid-sentence and then it ends 600 pages later mid-sentence. And also the first word of the book is river run. And there's a woman in the book who's supposed to be sort of a human embodiment of rivers. And so either the stream of the unconscious, because everyone is asleep, and so you read to the end of the book and it's supposed to feed you right back into the beginning, and it's a constant circle spiral. And that's what Cormac McCarthy's new twin novels are supposed to do. And now that I have read each of them more than once, I am absolutely hypnotized. I'm really impressed. I don't know if it's not the same thing as having like really enjoyed the novels to say that I was very impressed by them, pero I was tremendo impressed. I was very impressed. 6.7% alcohol. I knew it was more than the other things that I drink. I got a push notification from Google the other day, which seemed a little weird. It was suggesting like, hey, based on things that you're interested in, did you know that Steve Irwin's death was caught on video? Which is, I don't, so I read the article and it turns out that yes, his death was captured on footage. Like it was confined to just the one tape, and then the tape was given to his wife, and I think his wife never watched it, and I think the article ended by saying that she likely destroyed it. She told someone she destroyed the tape. Alright, that's enough of this. I'm really impressed with this South Beach Blood Orange Sunset IPA. Very good if you like IPAs and citrusy things. Thanks for having a beer with me while I'm unemployed.